Welcome to Expanded Understanding, episode number 49. Someday I'll figure out how to run actual sound gear and remember to turn my stuff on before I start talking. Nevertheless, we are very excited to have you here. I really appreciate you guys being here every night and coming and hanging out. And any of the new
Mm-hmm.
people that are around, we're really nice having you here. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. We are on here every night. And if you do like the music that was on here before that, I have the guy's page on the screen here. His name is The Man from Del Monte. I've linked him in the chat. He has a lot of cool liquid drum and bass mixes. And if you liked the kind of music that you heard just before this, then you would like a lot of the stuff that is on his page. Uh, so that's definitely a good resource to go for new music if you're having trouble finding stuff that is, the same thing that you've been doing before. And oftentimes doing new things can really change our perception of reality. But sometimes sticking to the old things is also a good idea. So two of the things that we're sticking to is really definitely raising this community that we have here. We got a lot of cool stuff and a lot of cool people going on with this community and a lot of cool ideas that we're in the process of rolling out. One of the things that we're doing that's really important to us right at this point in time is helping the indigenous people of the Peruvian Amazon basically feed themselves and provide medicine during this time of need. They don't really have any kind of tourist funding at this point in time, so times are a bit harder, and sicknesses and stuff, and life keeps happening. So we're helping them out. We've definitely raised some money this month. I don't know, $200 or something like that. We need a couple hundred more dollars
Awesome.
really to basically feed everybody. But we still got some time to do that. We really appreciate everybody for helping out so far. And yeah, like I said, new things mostly have to do with basically music and stuff, but really, and this is kind of in the tenor of what we're going to end up watching a video about tonight and then talking about some, is really just adjusting our perception of reality, the things that we are doing inside of reality, and how those kind of sculpt the way that we do see the world, or even how the way that we look at data can change the way that we are really kind of seeing the world. And really just making sure that we're utilizing the gifts that we're given in the terms of like a great perception, eyes, all these sensory devices, a brain to parse all the information. This is a very powerful device and very much like a chainsaw, right? Like you can use a chainsaw to build an entire cabin that'll keep your family alive for 10 winters in a row, or you can cut your leg off with a chainsaw. It's pretty important to know how to use and how you are being affected by tools that have great strengths that you have access to. Your perception, your mind, your sensory devices is certainly one of these, and how we take in data definitely really plays a huge role inside of our life. The video that we're going to watch tonight is a TED Talk from a man named Steven Pinker, which is basically looking at some numbers and postulating on the idea. This does come from 2018 with 2017 numbers, but this same idea applies all of the time. And that basic idea is just that when we look at numbers, when we're presented with news, we have a tendency to give a bias to things that are directly in front of our face. But if we then extrapolate our current set of data from the current experience and we look around to other spaces in reality, oftentimes, and data seems to show, especially over recent times, that while it may seem through the media that gets presented to us and the kind of things that are talked about in culture, sometimes that maybe like the world is turning into a worse place. The data actually in most cases doesn't agree with that whatsoever. It actually says that in pretty much most of the metrics that a person would go by, the world is becoming a better place. And if we look at, the world through this perspective, it is possible for us to see that there has always been problems on the earth. We as humans intrinsically have a drive to make our lives better, and you can't really make your own life better without making the lives of people around you better. And when their life gets better, the lives of people around them gets better. And it's kind of an inevitable thing that if anybody's trying to make anything better, the thing's going to become better because especially if you believe in the ideas of balance, if the system is completely balanced in its intrinsic nature, then the movements of someone trying to make it better, whether it be specifically for them, for a group of people, for a whole country, for the earth itself, that drive to make it better is taking the thing in a better direction, right? Like because it intrinsically inside of its nature is non-moving, and when something is not moving at all, any kind of direction is going to go. So we do see in many ways that the world is becoming a better place. And I urge you to try and hold that perspective because, in my personal experience, it does seem just like our life works out better if we hold the perspective that things are actually going positive, or at least they will go positive for us. And this isn't to say be delusional about the world around you by any stretch of the imagination. Certainly be objective with all of the data, but do yourself the favor of trying to see how your goals are being accomplished, not always focus on how your goals are not being accomplished, because it really does change the way that you try to carry out your goals on the day to day. And so that's a basic gist of what we are going to talk about tonight. Hope you enjoyed the music. Again, thank you all for being here. Aaron, thank you for being here. How are you doing tonight,
Thank
man?
you. I'm good. I'm a little behind because my car wouldn't start this morning, so I had to wait and flag somebody down until a really nice guy in a Prius came and helped me out. So it's getting some gas, getting some food, and doing the food. We're watching the video and taking notes, and it'll be great.
Nice. Well,
Nice.
it's very. They talked about it on Angela's podcast today, and then Jen ended up touching on it again. And it's kind of this idea of the energy of the monkey, and to the only way I didn't hear it get touched on is the Hindu concept of Hanuman, and very
Mm,
much so. This is kind of the idea that in a certain, we'll call it an archetype of life. It's maybe not necessarily an archetype, but for the sake of this conversation, we'll call it an archetype. A certain archetype of life does like to poke fun at us, basically, and it likes to throw kind of difficulty in our way to give us the opportunity to navigate it more gracefully than we have before, or potentially to
mm,
trip and fall on our face and learn something from that. And at
mm,
certain points in times, this energy seems to be a little bit, thicker or denser or more prominent than other
mm,
times. And for a variety of reasons, which have already been elaborated on other shows, right now is one of those times where it is a little bit more prominent. And so I urge you again, also, anybody listening, if you are finding yourself like finding some tripping points and such, give yourself, try and give yourself the opportunity for grace by allowing yourself to see your stumble as still a step in the right direction, even if it maybe wasn't a very controlled step in that direction. I had
mm.
what a great metaphor that I didn't totally not think was going to come out of my mouth. Like I couldn't agree with what I just said right there more. And when I started that sentence, I had no idea what I was going to say, but
That's pretty
I
good. Say it again.
completely agree with that. Um, if you're finding yourself tripping, it's not really that you're falling. Like that trip is still a step in the right direction, even if that trip might not be completely controlled, right? It might not
Yeah,
be the perfect step. You might not be
totally.
running or leaping in that direction, but you are still heading in the vector that you're trying to go. And if you can keep your focus on that and keep on moving into that situation, then that'll be very helpful for you. It's
It
interesting because
also,
people who climb a lot, they call them monkeys, and climbing really like taught me this a lot in my life, very much so about like make the best out of what's there.
yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, and like whatever circumstances come up. I mean, how like I was thinking of Ellen. There's the bit she did I don't know years ago, but when you trip and you turn it into a run, like you meant to do that, like tripping on the
Sure.
sidewalk,
Yeah.
and so finding ways to control the fall or whatever as you're falling. I mean, sometimes you fall so fast it's yet nowhere, but a lot of times, no matter what you stumble into, if you can find a way to turn that trip into a run or a jog or a dance or something else, I mean, just there's ways to always transmute or turn it into some kind of new fractal at some point, in some way.
Yeah. And this is kind of the idea of grace. Like grace can never be tested unless you're given an opportunity to be more graceful than you normally would be, which generally looks like stumbling or at least presenting the opportunity to stumble. Don's regarding
Yeah.
the links, you just have to get around YouTube's blockage of anybody besides moderators or channel owners from posting links. So you have to like put spaces in the link or other various stuff to get around it. There's nothing we can do about it. We don't have it blocked. YouTube blocks it.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, but grace and really like part of grace is making sure that you're looking at the data in a way that is beneficial, right? Like if you choose to, this is the entire idea of the cognitive hypothesis bias, is the idea that if you already think that something is going to happen, when you go out there and you look at the data that you find will support it. How this applies to
Yep.
what we're talking about is that really you can find the data to support whatever fucking belief you feel like having. So if you believe that your life is basically like catastrophic, the sky is falling type of situation, you're going to spend your time finding the data to support that.
Or
I,
even
I
more
ask you to
so, subconsciously, you'll track that data to yourself. You'll totally overlook the data that disagrees with that, and the data that comes across your path that agrees with it, you'll pay more attention to it.
right, which for me, from my own personal ideology, this is two formats of the same thing. Something
Yeah.
coming to you or you going to it is really functionally the same thing. You guys coagulate to the same space. So
Yeah. It's the
nevertheless,
awareness of what you get attention to.
Yeah, if you're looking for data that supports your hypothesis that the sky is falling, you likely will find data that supports the idea that the sky is falling, even if it's not.
Hmm.
And so we're going to go ahead and roll into the video here with Steven Pinker, in many ways talking about exactly this in a little bit more grounded way of looking at specifically the world and some metrics about the world, and just really, though, taking a critical look at the idea of whether or not the world is getting better or worse. So here we go. Thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate all of you. Love you very much. Hopefully, we can all gain something out of this.